Hello everyone, it's Caleb aka the Book Flipper here, and I want to share a project I've been hard at work on over the last couple months. This is my tracking spreadsheet. So many of you have picked up the listing spreadsheet for free, and that's still available for free. The idea is it helps you list books quickly and efficiently into Amazon. As we all know, the actual processing of books can take quite a bit of effort, and we're trying to streamline that process as much as possible without having to pay for expensive software. Along those lines, I'm a big data guy. If you check out my blog, thebookflipper.com, you'll see a lot of data-driven posts. I've put together a lot of spreadsheets in my day, and I really enjoy looking at the data, analyzing it, and trying to figure out how to run a business more effectively. So I want to show you what I've created here. It's simply called the tracking spreadsheet, and this is version 1.0. And I tried to simplify things as much as possible. So you don't have to be an Excel guru. You don't have to have much Excel experience at all. And as you'll see, there's a couple little touches that make it a little more simple. Any cells that are highlighted in green throughout the spreadsheet are things that you're supposed to enter the dates or enter information. Anything else that's in other colors, don't touch it. That'll just make it extremely easy. So let's walk through it. I want to show you the features that I've set up here and show you how you can track your own book sales. And you can use this for anything. It doesn't just have to be books, but for me specifically, 99% of my business is books. And I want to show you how I track and manage my business. So the only two forms you really need to spend a lot of time with are the listing data, and if you use that listing spreadsheet I gave you, it has a form called accounting data that will essentially be everything you need to do or everything you need to copy and paste into this sheet. So once you're done uploading that form to Amazon, you can simply copy paste the rest of the data onto the listing data tab, and that's all you need to do. On the sales data, there's a simple report within Amazon, and I'll show you how to do that in a different video, but it's one single report. You can simply export that data, copy paste it into the spreadsheet, and you're off and running. That's all you have to do from a data perspective. You don't have to consolidate multiple reports. As long as you keep up with it, you can easily keep up with this spreadsheet. So once you've done the hard work there and got everything ready to go, what can the spreadsheet do for you? Well, let's go ahead and look at it. First off, you have source metrics. So if you're using Inventory Lab, you can set up what they call suppliers. I call it sources. And the idea is you can just put what the source is and have a good feel of several different metrics. So for example, I did a blog post a couple months ago on a trip to Indianapolis. I tagged everything on that trip as Indy Adventure, and we'll just walk through and show you what data is here. So I can see I listed 243 books on that trip. It was just a weekend trip to go to a book selling dinner. Ever since then, 122 of them have sold, or right at 50%. I expect about 60 to 70% to eventually sell, so that number should keep steadily climbing upward. I had a total list price of just over $6,000 on that adventure, or an average list price of $25. It's a little bit higher than my normal average price, so I must have found a couple great books within there. My average rank, just over 650,000. I think my overall average rank is right around 1 million. So again, these are good books and they're high list prices. Since that time frame, I've sold almost $2,400 worth of those books. My total inventory cost for the adventure, you can see that here, a little under $500, or my average cost was just under $2, which is actually quite high for my typical inventory. My inbound shipping, so what it cost me to actually send that to Amazon's warehouse, almost $120. Amazon's fees on the items that have sold, about $750, and that leaves me with a profit of just over $1,000, which easily paid for the airfare. I crashed at a friend's couch, so there was no costs there. Paid for the dinner, paid for my rental car, everything. So the nice part is you can easily get a glimpse into which of your sources are doing well. So if you like to travel and pay for it like I do, not a bad adventure. You can see the ROI there. I spent $450, give or take, and made just over $1,000. So a little over 200% return on my initial investment. Not bad. And again, those ROIs are very common when it comes to the book world. Within this sheet, let's say we want to find out what's my source with the highest list price. This is Excel for a Mac, but it's going to be very, very similar if you use this on a Windows. So if you right click and say sort, you can then go largest to smallest. We can see what our highest list price is. Well, no surprise, it's books I got from a lawyer. The average list price was almost $68. I only had 24 books. I actually picked these up on Craigslist. They were quite expensive. I think I paid $8 a pop for these, so almost $200 for those books. And even after all the fees and even after the expensive costs here, I was still able to net close to $400. Again, 200% return on my investment. So as long as you set up different sources in your data, you'll be able to pull data just like this and have a good understanding on how much is selling, how much you're actually profiting, and that'll give you a good idea on which sources to go back to and maybe which ones to avoid in the future. But again, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And it's a lot of fun to go back and look at your data later and see how profitable some of those library sales, for example, are. The next tab over is the monthly metrics. Put a couple charts here together to help you with your sales. The first one is units listed. If you've followed along on my blog, you know my idea or my goal initially was to list 100 books a week, and that would be 400 a month, give or take. And you can see I've definitely hit that after the first couple months, and we've been getting up to the point where we're doing close to 1,000 books a month. And as we start to bring in scouters, hopefully those numbers will continue to rise. This percent sold is how many I listed during the month of November have sold since then all the way through the current time or through the present time. So that's about 13, 14 months ago, and as you can see, I've sold almost 80%. I don't expect any more books from that lot to actually sell. The books I've listed there, they're either penny books and the price is tanked, or the rank has just gone up and they may never sell again. And as you can see over time, if we go back about 6 months, I've sold right around 50% of my inventory from 6 months ago. And as we get into books I listed last month, a good 20% of them have sold already, which is phenomenal. You can check your average list price. So we got some book metrics. You can see your average list price over time and make sure that you're hitting whatever targets you've set up. You can also see your average sales rank over time. For me, it's right around 1 million, but it gives you a good idea if you're hitting that, or maybe you're starting to buy books that are too high. Maybe you need to dial that back a little bit. And again, you can see the exact same data here that you saw in the source metrics tab. You can get an idea of how many books you listed, what percent has sold. You can see your total list price. You can look at your total profit and your total ROI as well through those periods. So what's interesting to note is that even all the books I bought in January listed over 1,000 units, total inventory cost of $1,400 or almost $1.40 a piece. Books are a little more expensive out here in Denver. My profit's already $600 and I'm not even a month out from all of those books. So that's phenomenal. Again, once you get this business going, you can start turning the inventory nice and fast, which is great. Moving on, we've got a sales rank analysis. Again, you start to see something in green here. That means it's something you can edit. What this does is it takes all the books I've listed and it stratifies them into different ranks. So here we have 0 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000, and so on. I've even got books ranked, 1 to 2 million, 2 to 3 million, on up, and then 5 million plus. I will buy books that are ranked 5 million plus. Some people stay far away from them. I do need to make sure that my average list price is closer to $50 before I justify that. And you can actually look over here under the average list price column and see that that has held true. So my goal on a 5 million or higher book is to get at least $50, and I'm averaging 62. So I've met my criteria. What's interesting is then you can see what percent of your books have sold. So if you look at the 0 to 10,000 ranks, 83% of the books I've listed there have sold, which is phenomenal. What's more intriguing is that books ranked 5 million plus, I've sold 17% of them. So even with really high ranks, those books sometimes still can sell. All it takes is someone to be a prime seller there or for someone to price it more accurately. Sometimes you have a situation where a repricer's gone wild. You can then look at return on investment by rank and get a feel of where your best books are. What's interesting is my best ROI by far is this 2 million to 3 million category. And for me, that's a gray space. Anything less than 2 million, I'm really just looking at FBA prices. Any books higher than 3 million, I'm looking at more at the merchant fulfilled price because I'm not confident that the next buyer is going to come along. In the 2 to 3 million range, it's a little bit of a gray area, so I'm usually pulling up camel data and trying to make much better decisions there. And maybe I'm being a little too cautious. My ROI is great. I could probably buy a few more books and make more money overall if I'm willing to lax that off just a little bit. This cutoff date real quick, I don't want to confuse anybody, but the idea is this includes all the books we've listed. What's intriguing is if we go back a couple months, so let's say September 1st of 15, what this is going to do when I hit enter is actually take all the books I've listed prior to then, and it won't count any books I've listed after September 1st. What that does is give us an idea of books that are roughly 4 months out now, how many of them are selling. And as you can expect, my percentages actually go up. So instead of 83% of the books ranked less than 10,000, I've actually sold 92% of them. So again, that gives you an idea. You can even take this further back and say, all right, books that have been in my inventory roughly 6 months, how many of them are selling? And as you can imagine, the numbers are going to steadily keep creeping upwards. So again, just a different way to slice the data, get a good handle on your business. And again, I'm selling 23% of my books ranked 5 million or higher. I might be able to consider buying a few more books in that range. Consignment sales, many of you won't use this, but it's a nice feature if it's here. So I work out a couple arrangements. One, with my scouters, I do consignment or commission payments for them. Two, I like to be able to go to people, and if we can't agree on a price right up front, I prefer to just buy the book straight up. But in a lot of cases, they have expensive books or highly ranked books, and I'm not sure if they're going to sell, or maybe they're friends of mine. And so I can come in here and say, hey, I'll sell them on commission. I've got a spreadsheet that tracks it all. We just work on a deal. Usually it's 20 to 25% of sales, and that's what we agree on. Sometimes we'll agree on 50% of net profit. You can do either here. So let me give you an example how this works. I sold books for my brother. His name's Samuel. So you type his name in as the source, and as long as you've got him tied in with your original listing data, it'll pull the data. So in this case, I'm going to go with 20%, and you can see I've listed 51 books for him. 41 have sold, or 80%, not bad. Total sales price of $1,400, and this actually nets out any returns. So if there's returns, it'll actually count against the total sales, and the extra Amazon fees incurred will be counted in here. So you don't need to worry about tracking the returns any differently. It automatically does that for you. I can see the inbound shipping costs, and I'm taking a percentage of sales, so I'm getting 20%. So my revenue is 20% of the $1,400, or just over $280. After Amazon's fees, the inbound shipping costs, everything, the only thing it doesn't account for is inventory storage, and that's relatively cheap, so I usually just absorb the cost myself. You can see I owe Samuel a little over $760. Good news is he lives in Europe and can't track me down for this. But no, Samuel, we'll get you a check written. So what you do here is you can see Samuel, it says we owe the amount of $763. We still owe him because I haven't paid him anything. So you can simply type in Samuel, put today's date if you're ready to pay him, and go ahead, and as I write him a check or send him some PayPal, I'll go ahead and type it in here. And as you can see then, it then pulls it in and says, hey, yep, we owed Samuel a little over $760. We paid him. We owe him nothing now. We're zeroed out. We're good to go moving forward. So that's the commission sales. And again, it's really flexible. It gives you that ability to pay based on percentage of sales or net profit. So whatever agreement you want to work out, you can do that with your individual sources. Inventory turn rates. This is one of those that you see a lot of the Facebook forums asking about. And the question is, how many of my books are going to sell? And now you don't have to just make random estimates or try and figure it out. This sheet will track it for you. We've got two categories. One is a weekly inventory turn. The second is a monthly inventory turn. Now, when I started tracking my data, I already had about 400 books in inventory. So you can put that up here. If you're starting from scratch, you can put the number 0. And again, anything in green you can enter in. So you can start your dates on, or your week on whatever date you'd like. For me, I started on a Sunday. You may want Monday. You could do Wednesday. It doesn't matter. Throw the first week that you started selling up here, and the spreadsheet will fill all the way down for you. As you can see, we started with 400 books. We put 123 in the very first week I started for a total inventory of just over 500. I sold 35 books, so a turn rate of 6.7% that week. And as you can see, as you go down, textbook season, we just wrapped that up. So during the month of January here, I had a couple great weeks, close to 6%, just over 8%, and then a couple other weeks right at 6%. So my average turn rate's 3.5%, which I've been conservatively estimating 2.5%. So I was relatively pleased with that. On a monthly level, again, put the month you first started going, and the spreadsheet will fill in down from there. You can see how many books you're putting in each month and see what your inventory is growing to, and get a feel of if your inventory is growing or shrinking or remaining stagnant. Show you how many units you've sold. Again, January was a great month due to textbook season. I was able to sell 24% of my inventory, even though my average monthly turn is actually 13.4%. The next couple tabs are nothing fancy. It's just a way to track your supplies. If you're buying big ticket items like computers, you're going to want to talk to your CPA about that. You can't expense the whole amount in the year that you buy it. You have to actually depreciate that. But again, talk to your accountant. Smaller items like supplies, tape, boxes, etc., you can just plug in here and it'll feed into the income statement. Mileage, we've put the mileage rates here. So the IRS came out, the mileage rate actually went down thanks to gas prices tanking a little bit. So you can see the mileage deduction is 54 cents a mile. I use an app called Mile IQ So I just put some random numbers in here. In general, I just put one number a month. So I'll put a figure for the end of January and write all the miles I did there. And MileIQ will spit out data for me to give to my accountant. But then this will take the amount of miles you've driven, multiply by the appropriate rate for the year that you're in, and give you a mileage value that you can then deduct off of your income statement. Disposals and returns. Unfortunately, Amazon, if you create a removal order or if you just have them dispose or destroy your inventory, they don't track which items or which SKUs they destroyed. So you have to do that on your own end. The only thing we're doing here is tracking cost of goods sold. So good news is I don't destroy a lot of my inventory. If you're going to get rid of 10 of them and your original cost on those items is $4.50, you can just put that in here, and that's just going to make sure that your cost of goods sold is exactly where you want to be. All right, so we've played with some fun metrics. We've talked about just some mundane data entry things. Now comes the fun part. What does the spreadsheet spit out for you? So here's an income statement. Again, you can customize this as much as you want. You can look at a monthly level. You can look at a 5-year interval if you have that much data. You can look at a week data. Just put any data points here. Right now I've got the whole year of 2015, and it's going to break it down. So all these numbers are actually going to match the 1099 form that Amazon gives you. So if you can give this to your accountant, they can match it right up with Amazon. Shouldn't have any issues there. The beauty of this is that this pulls in a few extra pieces that Amazon doesn't know. The big one of that is cost of goods sold. So you can't expense all of your inventory. You can only expense the portion that you've sold in that given year. And this will give your accountant, he will probably or she will probably give you a big hug if you're able to track this data accordingly. The nice part is we can see how many items we've sold, both FBA and merchant fulfilled. We can see an average sales price, get an idea if that's where we thought they were, and your total price. You can also kind of see a chart or a graph here that just breaks that down. For me, FBA is 99% of my business. I rarely sell anything merchant fulfilled, but I guess I do occasionally. You can see refunded units and what the average refund amount was and what your total refunds is that comes out of your sales. You can also see where the customers actually don't return those items, and Amazon will reimburse you for those portion of the items that aren't returned. The other nice part about this is that the FBA inventory credits just show up as one lump sum on your 1099 from Amazon. Here you can actually get a feel of how many items is Amazon losing, what's the value that they're replacing, how many are damaged, how many did the customers return. So you get a lot more granular data with this spreadsheet, with this accounting software, if you want to call it that. We can also see a bunch of miscellaneous charges kind of broken down. Again, we talked about the cost of goods sold. Again, Amazon's not going to know that unless you have something to track it on the front ends. If you use the listing spreadsheet and then feed into this tracking spreadsheet, you will have that moving forward. It's a very nice thing to have. We can look at Amazon's selling fees, the transaction fees, any of the shipping fees, and then again, inventory storage fees. So my storage fees for all of last year were just over $600. That's cheaper than I could rent a warehouse here in Denver. That would probably get me a week's worth of rent out here. Everything's very expensive. My long-term storage fees, and again, that's only on books where I have multiple quantities, and it's just $10 for the year. So not a big deal. If I was smarter, I'd probably go back in and remove some of those to avoid fees moving forward. But again, it's not a very high fee. You can see the disposal fees, return fees, label prep fees, any of those type of fees, and again, broken out at a granular level so you can look at those. Down here, we've got consignment payments. So if you sell on commission, you can track it here. It's got the supplies, which comes from the supplies tab, and the overall mileage, and you can see your net income for the year. The other nice piece of this is that it'll spit out a graph that kind of shows your FBA margin. So we always talk about the 60% rule. If I have $1,000 worth of items that sell, roughly 60% of that comes back to me in the form of profit. This doesn't count cost of goods sold, so you have to take that out of there as well. But in general, Amazon's going to take 40%, and that's going to come from their selling fees, their FBA pick, pack, and ship fees, and then I've roped in my subscription fees, inventory storage fees, and inbound shipping as well on top of that. So for every $1,000 you make on Amazon, they get about $400. You're going to pocket about $600, and then you got to take out other expenses from there. So that's the income statement. Then we've got a side-by-side income statement, which is pretty cool. You could put any date ranges you want. So if you want to see how your business is growing from the first quarter of the year to the second quarter, just plug those dates in. It'll spit out your growth numbers. So these match the income statements that we had on the last tab, only they show growth. So I've set it up to look at January of 15 versus January of 16 and see how we grew. You can see my overall income went from just over $7,000 to just over $26,000, or a growth rate of over 250%. So this gives you a good idea, is your business going up or down, or just remaining stagnant, and give you some motivation to send more books in. Lastly, a couple more statements here, and again, these are more for the CPA type that are going to enjoy this. This is the cash flow statement. Again, you can put whatever dates you want. You can see how much money Amazon actually puts in your bank, minus the actual inventory you purchase, and again, minus consignment payments. And this will let you know what your net cash flow is. So just because you make money on your income statement doesn't mean you're actually getting cash flow. Cash is king. If you actually have cash coming in, that's a good thing. That frees you up to go buy more inventory. And then last but not least, you can do an inventory valuation, so just pick any date. For me, it's the end of the year, and that's typically what your accountant will want to see. So you can just plug a date in here, and it'll show you what your total cost of inventory was up until this date, and then what your cost of goods sold, and show you how much inventory you still have in Amazon's warehouse. And again, your CPA will give you a hug for having this data. So that's what I've got for now. I've got an introductory offer available, so if you're interested in buying that, head over to thebookflipper.com/track, TRACK. And again, what started out as just a hobby project for me eventually turned into the point where I was able to get rid of Inventory Lab. I now list using spreadsheets, and I'm able to track everything using spreadsheets. And some of the other softwares out there are going to run roughly $50 a month, or $500 to $600 a year. So think of the cost savings you can get there and still manage your inventory extremely well. Again, this is geared more toward books with its, with the sales rank analysis, but it can work with anything. If you have any questions, drop me a line, thebookflipper@gmail.com, and I look forward to seeing you over on my blog. Thanks for watching.